So a lot of worthiness has to do with shame, and it's so easy to hide away our past. And this is, to me, there's this thin line between hiding the past and dwelling in the past. So people tend to say like these short sentences, like these stupid short lines that say, don't dwell on the past. Don't be busy with the past. Only look ahead. The past is done. Don't look at it. Don't be busy with it. But the thing is, in order to get rid of shame, in order to feel safe in your body, you have to look at the past. You have to really know what happened and what made you become who you are. You have to really feel the pain of traumatic events, of events that were too big to grasp. And they don't have to be traumas in the sense of very injured events. They don't have to be war traumas, but just something, the bullying, just some really negative experience that you couldn't grasp as a child, for instance, that was too much to handle, that was very threatening, that involved a lot of emotions that you just could not tell to anyone, that there was no emotional support when you were bullied, that there was no emotional support when you were abused by your parents, that there was no emotional support when you were harassed by a teacher, that there was no one at home who could reassure you, who could comfort you, who could make you feel safe again. So a lot of this pain, this childhood pain, it has to do with feeling unsafe. And those unsafe feelings, they tend to pent up. But especially if you avoid talking about those events, if you really hide them, if you go into a new student life like I did, and you're like, I have a new life now. I'm a student, I'm away from my old place, I don't have to mention what happened to me. And a part of me wanted to mention, but there's this big taboo. There's too much taboo on the mental vulnerability that everyone has. Because we're all humans, it means that we're all vulnerable in some sense. But in Dutch we call this a mental vulnerability. It means like people with mental vulnerability, they might have not a distortion, but they might be vulnerable to developing some kind of mental disorder. And I'd rather call it distortion, because everyone can recover from everything, because Jesus can heal anything, and we're all able to find the power to change ourselves. And if we become the best that we are, if we own our power, then the healing comes with it. That's part of personal growth. So that's the good side of it. But I'm going back to my shame, because I've been hiding this one part in my life that I almost had a psychosis, and it was diverted. But I felt so ashamed afterwards, because I lost my confidence. I lost my confidence because of it, because I had to quit my studies, which I just started, and I had to move back, live with my dad, and I had to see what was the cause for this paranoia state that I was in. And I'm taking a breath. It's always the best, you know. It's almost not allowed even when you're sitting in front of a therapist. I had a few good ones, but a lot of bad ones. And I think that the body, you know, starts to speak. And that's what most therapists forget. They think it's all about the head, but this body has stored up emotions. And those emotions were those of fear in those days. And I had made some mistakes. I had been hitting on the best friend of my boyfriend. And because our relationship, the relationship between me and my boyfriend was ending just at the same time that I would start the academic year, like this huge step to go from college to university in the Netherlands, it's big. I as a child, I didn't know that I was capable of doing university. I liked learning, but I didn't have those high grades. And it wasn't easy for me to pass classes and to go from one grade to the other. So when I made this leap to university, I wanted my boyfriend with me. I wasn't able to cut out that relationship. I didn't have a good support network. So I leaned on that guy that just wasn't my match, that wasn't going to grow with me. But as I knew his best friend a lot because we were hanging out, the three of us, and my boyfriend and his best friend lived in the same house, I really got attached to that guy, to our Saturday evenings watching Quentin Tarantino movies and having fries every Saturday, the same thing. And even in that winter, my boyfriend, he didn't care for going out, and he kept me safe. He was my shelter in a time that I was doing group therapy. So imagine you're doing group therapy for 1 year. You finish because you start an academic year, and then you go down. That was for me like a big failure in my eyes. And because I didn't talk to anyone properly, I made this event. I made this like my huge secret, my huge failure of having deceived another guy, having hurt my ex-boyfriend, having been in the wrong relationship for 2 years, and actually I felt like I really abandoned myself. So in that process of reflecting, I was so hard. I put it all together, all the events of the 2 years, and I think I unconsciously told myself that it was all my fault and that I should take on all the blame. So from blame and fault we come to judgment, and this is actually what shame is. Shame is self-judgment, and it's so righteous, it's so destroying for the confidence, because shame wants to hide in the dark. Shame doesn't want you to speak about events, and when you speak about events, the shame gets released. You get to move up the scale of emotions, because down there at the scale, if this is the down line, here's shame, but you can move up to guilt, to sadness, and ultimately at the top there's joy. But if you don't talk, you stay stuck in those low vibrations of shame. You stay stuck, you stay disconnected from people who could build you up, people who could say, Anna, you're looking at this a bit one-sided, and Anna, you had your reasons to make the decisions that you made. And probably you like this guy, and probably you didn't have another option, but staying in a relationship that was bad for you. And probably you were really liking his best friend, and probably you couldn't help on hitting on him because you were afraid of losing two guys at the same time. And then what happened is that my ex-boyfriend, he threatened me. When he found out, he threatened me, and he said there were some Yugoslavic people, friends of the girlfriend of the best friend, who was really pissed with me. And it was said that I would be beaten up because of that card that I sent. And I just couldn't grasp like all of the events happening at the same time. I just couldn't feel worthy of continuing my new life because I felt so ashamed. And I think this is a dramatic, deep pattern that I'm so not alone with. But this tendency to say to myself, I made a mistake and now I'm not good enough to have a good life. It's the most painful thing. It has to be reflected, probably relativized. For me, as being a human, I am a human being that makes mistakes. That's why I'm a human. That's why we're all making mistakes. That's why we're all fallible. But yeah, this is a pattern that I'm so glad to have seen, to know, and to give myself compassion for, because I started talking about it, I started writing about it, and the whole thing fell into place. And the pain of shame, it's not totally gone, but it has dissolved. And I think it's more than gone. But to all of you dealing with mistakes and shame, I want to say, please talk about it. And please find someone you trust. And find a pen and a paper. Find a way to pin it down first. And it doesn't have to be a great story. If you're not used to journaling, you can maybe make a drawing or write the words loosely. Just loose words, but try to express something and try to not take on the blame, because there are always 2-3 persons involved that also have responsibility. You are not the only one to carry the responsibility. So, my people, I would like to thank you if you watched this far, and tell you to tell yourself, I am enough. See you.